Welcome to Target Practice, a podcast about great managers, interesting data, and important decisions. I'm Nir Gerson, CEO of Target Board AI. Today I have with me Motti Tadmor. Motti is a VP of product at IBS Software. He is an expert, maybe the foremost expert on hospitality technology. He's had a fantastic career, built multiple companies, was very fortunate to see most of them exit. Motti, it is great having you here.
Hi, Leo. Thank you so much for having me. It's great being here.
So, Motti, we spoke before, and you had a very lucky career. Tell me, what would you say was your proudest achievement?
I think there's probably a lot in every person's career, and it's always hard to put the finger on one specific one, but there are a few specific points in my career, earlier on in my career, where I was able to turn sour to a sweet, which means I was embedded into a project that was failing or clunky or super slow, and I just brought my different way of thinking and vision and perspective and tried something different, and it worked. And the customer was happy, the company was happy, and the project pushed forward. There's at least two specific examples I can think of where this happened, and I was able to turn something for a hospitality big chain that were trying to modernize their loyalty system, and the project was completely stuck until I was brought on board. And just thinking on things very differently, proposing something very different really solved the puzzle and was pushing the project forward. So those are kind of my proud moments. I do a lot of hospitality software, which means when I go to hotels, when I stay in hotels, I always kind of lean forward to look at what they're using behind the front desk. And if I see software or pieces of software that I'm part of, that's my biggest accomplishment. That fills me with huge satisfaction because I know I have part in it.
Did you double click on the details of what you changed?
Yeah, very, very much so. So the example I provided, and it happened twice in my career, was a very significant change in the way that a hotel chain operates. One I mentioned was loyalty. I gave a hint. It was how do they treat their repeating customers? And the way that the project was thought about before I joined was the customer came with their business needs, as well as the solution, as well as how they want everything to look and to be operating. And the software company I worked for was simply trying to fit exactly what the customer asked them to do, basically trying to build exactly what the customer said that they want, without thinking about the pain points, challenges, opportunities, whether it works or not. So at some point, the project just got stuck, and my boss said, hey, how about I just throw you in there? Just take a look. You have some experience. Help us understand why this is not moving. When I joined, I basically said to the customer, guys, let's redefine your problem statement. What are you trying to solve? Don't tell me how to solve it. Just tell me what's your problem. What is it that you're trying to make happen here? And when they actually repeated their problem statement, it was very evident to me that the way that they tried to solution it was very, very wrong. It was very old fashioned. It was basically a lifted shift of an old solution to a new one. And I told them, guys, there's a very easy and new way to solve it. We have the pieces. We never thought about them. We'll connect you to the new pieces. And that's it. It was just thinking about the whole solution versus problem in a very different way. So it sounds simplistic, but it was really just separating problem from solution.
Yeah, it just got me thinking. A couple of months ago, my team went on this conference, and one of the team was staying at the Grand Hyatt, somewhere in the world. I won't say where. But at some point, she gets out of the shower, and she gets a call from the reception asking, how was your shower? So that was a bit creepy. I wonder what software that was.
Yeah, I don't know that one specifically. I know that there's a lot of intelligence that's put in hotels in recent days, or in the industry in general for the past 10 years, but now with AI even more so. I'm not familiar with anything that's going to tell the front desk or guest services that you've been in a shower, but maybe it's through the maintenance system that tells them where lights are on and off or temperature in the room that's changing. Those systems exist.
Yeah. Okay. Now, what would you say was a point in your career where you would have done something different?
Yeah, I think this one is always a hard one to answer because you basically need to admit that you needed to do something in a different way. And it's usually, I think psychologically, it's associated for many of us as I failed. I'm not ashamed to admit there's probably many, many times in my career I should have done something differently. I will say earlier on in my career, I'm a very passionate person. And when I stick to my guns and I believe in a specific way of doing something, it was very hard for me earlier on to let go and understand that many times there's a much bigger system around me, an ecosystem around me, and decision-making factors around me that maybe I don't necessarily understand. And it took me time. It took me a few good years to understand corporate politics. It took me time to understand when I should insist and when I should let go. And I think it's something earlier in my career that I kind of regret. I think is probably I could have done better is just understand the balance shifts within a corporate politics, within a corporate organization. I don't have many regrets on my career choices. I think all of them were wonderful and they brought me where I am today. But again, I think earlier on in my career, I probably could have played the game much, much better from a cultural perspective.
Yep. Okay. Now, did you encounter any situation where having the right data made a big difference on an important decision that you had to make?
Plenty. Yes, absolutely. I think data is one of those things, Lior, that we all talk about, but people tend to ignore. And they think, yeah, sure, we will build the most beautiful flagship system in the world, and then we'll pump data behind it into some snowflake. And my philosophy is the opposite. You need to always start from the foundation and make sure that your data is solid, and then start building the walls and the roof on top. So you asked for specific examples. Yes, again, it's very similar to the example we talked about earlier on, where I had a success in my career. Many times, part of hotel ecosystem is not just the typical operational system of property management or central reservation, which are ways of bringing reservations into hotels and then managing the guest stay within the hotel. But a big part of it is also understanding hotels' data. How many stays do they have this month comparing to last year? Can you predict pricing for next month based on statistical information, and so on and so forth? So to answer your question, many times I saw customer come to me asking for help, solutions, new features that are based on bad data, simply not collecting the right data, simply not normalizing their data, simply not understanding their data, and trying to make decisions off of that bad data. So my philosophy and reaction to those was always, hold on. Let's first of all, look at your data, understand it, see if it's bad, if we need to normalize it, fix it, clean it, and then we go from there and we start building the new features. So the same analogy that I just gave, foundation first, then walls, and then roof. But yeah, I mean, I've seen this many times, Leo, where people tend to forget about data.
Would you say that it's more prevalent seeing people coming to you with not enough data, or where the data itself had like significant biases?
It depends. It's probably a mix. It depends on the customer, depends on the project. I've seen a mix of both of those, Leo. Many times customers don't have enough data just because they never collected it, or their ecosystem is built in a way that they focus on core systems that I explained, the core operational systems. And for them, data is kind of like, yeah, that's our reporting and analytics. It's a side business. They don't really pay attention to it. But there are many cases, mostly with the big enterprise hotel chains. I'm not going to name any, but I've known all of them for my entire career, and I'm in good connection with a lot of those, that they do actually have a huge focus around their data lakes, snowflakes, and others. And unfortunately, they're very biased, to your point. So they look at it in a very specific lens, and they ignore other signals in the data. So it's a combination of both. Yeah, I mean, talking about AI, I think we're going to probably get into it in this wonderful video. But I think one of the biggest issues I see today in the world is that everybody wants to slap some sort of an AI on something, but do they look at their data first? Because what's going to feed the AI and the LLM is data. And if your data is not good, then your AI is not going to be good. So big believer in data.
Very important observation. So let's double down on that point. You are a very highly regarded expert in your industry. I know you're close with a lot of the sort of decision makers and VCs and all of that. What is one of the most interesting trends that you see around AI for hospitality?
Yeah, I see two very interesting ones, Lior. One is hotels when they operate, and believe it or not, I think people are shocked when I tell them that they still have a lot of old-fashioned ways of working, sometimes managing things in Excel spreadsheet or even paper. They have very old habits that they never fix. And I'll give you a simple example. A guest is leaving the room, it's their checkout date, and just before they check out, they go to the restaurant, they consume something, and they say, put it on my room. Between the time that the restaurant is actually sending the posting to the room and the time that the guest checked out, the guest actually checked out first, which means the posting that goes into the room is facing a block. It's basically lost. It doesn't know what to do because the guest is no longer in the room. It's checked out. Old-fashioned habit. It goes into some catch-all kind of room in the system that says, lost postings. We don't know what to do with it. The amount of revenue bleeding just from that simple scenario is in the millions, sometimes in the billions. And there's a lot of other revenue bleeding type scenarios in hospitality. One of the interesting things that I see is that hoteliers are now saying, well, we have the data, we own it. Doesn't matter that the partner or provider like myself is providing the solution, but the data we own from a legal perspective. And they're starting to put teams together to look at that data and put AI on top of that data to help them facilitate some of those revenue bleeding opportunities. So in other words, AI is solving operational challenges for hotels independently. Hotels are doing it themselves, which usually in the past they wouldn't have the capacity, they wouldn't have the technical ability, expertise, and they would turn to someone else. The other trend that I see is very, very interesting. And there are many, many AI trends in hospitality, but I choose to focus on those two because I think they're the most critical ones, is the way that reservations, bookings are making their way into hotels. So this is very specific to the hospitality industry, but basically everybody knows today when they want to book a hotel, they go to online travel agencies, OTAs, Booking, Expedia, Agoda, Travelocity, all of those, right? Or they call an actual travel agent. Those are still using global distribution system, GDSs, or they call the hotel directly, or they go on the booking engine of the hotel directly, the brand.com, and so on and so forth. What that means is that they make a reservation and that reservation flows into another system, usually a central reservation systems or the property management system at the hotel. The shift that I see with AI is that users, consumers like you and me, Lior, when we want to book hotel, many times we will start by building our itinerary inside a chatbot. We go to ChatGPT, we go to Gemini, we go to Claude, we go somewhere else and we say, hey, I want to take my family out to Greece. And as part of that trip, I need you to help me find flights, rental car, one hotel night in Athens because I'm going to have a layover, and then attractions on the island, and then meals and restaurant. And what's really cool is that now you have AI stitching together a lot of pieces that used to be very, very, very fragmented in the industry. They're served by different vendors. No one owns the entire itinerary completely. But what the AI chatbots are facilitating is the ability to manage your entire itinerary in one place. Now, there's still some challenges. This problem is not solved yet. This isn't working perfect because, as I mentioned, different pieces of your itinerary are owned by different entities, different vendors. And so there comes a question, if everything in your itinerary was great except for the rental car, you showed up at the desk and they said, what are you talking about? We don't have a reservation. Who are you to blame? Who owns this piece of the transaction? Is that the AI? Is that the vendor who served the AI? Is that you as a consumer? Is that the rental car? Like, this is where it still needs to be governed a little bit better, and the pieces of liability need to be stitched better. And also sometimes I see a lot of areas where the actual MCP servers or chat solutions, because they don't own all the pieces, they direct you out. They send you out to a hyperlink. Go and finish this part there and come back to me. You will see a lot of the vendors that are trying to solve this and make sure that you stay within the chatbot and they own the entire trip. And this is very, very exciting because if you think about demographics and who are the consumers, even traveler profile is changing. My kids, and I'm sure that your kids, Leo, when they're grown-ups, are not consuming travel the same way that you and I are. They're mostly getting their considerations on where to travel, how to travel, what to consume in travel from TikTok, from Instagram, from influencers. It's not the very typical way or same traditional way that I consume travel. So if you combine the modern way of how they consume travel with just going into an AI chatbot or just asking your phone on an AI solution, those two combining together are proposing a new way of travel, which I like. It's very refreshing. It's very interesting. But again, needs to be refined a little bit better.
Really interesting. I want to ask you two questions about that. First, are you saying that, is that like a hallucination by the AI? Like, would the AI hallucinate a booking confirmation? And then when the person goes to the hotel, the reservation is not there? Or
No. So sure, AI agents hallucinate or AI in general hallucinates, but this is a little bit better guardrailed in the sense that what feeds the AI's MCP servers with the real data. It's not so much hallucination as much as it is the AI told you, here, I built you a full itinerary. And when they try to book one piece of that leg of that itinerary, say that the rental reservation, as we mentioned, the API connectivity behind when MCP server 1 wanted to talk to MCP server 2, that transaction failed. AI did not catch the error and told you, here's your full itinerary, good luck, have fun. However, they don't know that one piece of that itinerary from a technical perspective failed. So essentially what happened is AI did actually send a request to book a rental car reservation on your behalf through a full itinerary. Hotel was successful, air was successful, attraction, riding horses, ATV ride was successful, rental car failed. That's where I think the governance and the stitching together of your entire itinerary and maintaining it in one specific spot is still not refined enough because the AI is not aware. And it's telling you, yes, your itinerary booking is successful, but when you show up at the desk, they don't have a reservation because that specific reservation request failed. So that's what I meant. It's not so much hallucination. No, it's very, very technical in the background. It is still reliant on very old APIs to APIs connectivity.
Understood. Very interesting. I want to say that when we make reservations, because you spoke about your kids, I feel that it's always getting a very large list of constraints and then having to sort of decide what you're less strongly constrained about. Like what are you willing to be flexible about? And I feel that is hard for a person to do still. I don't see AI being able to book a hotel for us. Not the way they are now. Maybe if they get smarter. Anyways, last question for today. If you had to select one metric for new VPs of product management in your field, what would it be?
This is a hard question because I have so many KPIs that I measure on a daily basis. But one, I choose Lior to answer this one by focusing on value. And I would say rate of adoption would be the one KPI I choose. Among all of the other ones that I measure on a daily basis, obviously there's time to value and there's churn and there's definition of ready and there's everything inwards towards our engineering teams. But the one I would really focus on as a product leader is what I'm delivering. Is it being used? Is it being adopted? Did I do a good enough job that the customer is happy, satisfied, and using my product? So rate of adoption is high. And the reason I chose that one, Lior, is because obviously you know it. You're an expert in that field as well. If my rate of adoption is high, it also influences many other KPIs or sub KPIs. For example, time to value, NPS and satisfaction from the customer, my ability to now reference customers and go and find new markets and unlock sales. It just influences a lot of what we need as product leaders. But it starts from, are you just hacking out delivery of product pieces every single day without even understanding what they're doing in the market? That's not a good philosophy. As a product leader, you need to make sure that what you're delivering has value. So rate of adoption is big on the list for me.
Amazing. Motti, thank you so much. It's been a really interesting discussion. That's all for our episodes for today. If you liked it, please rate and review. And I hope to see you next time.
Thank you, Lior. Appreciate it.